Okay, everyone, here's another nice review video for first semester IM3. So if we look at this problem here, they're asking for the factor. So basically what they're telling you to do is take this expression and factor it. So let's go ahead and do that. I know that x times x is x squared. I know 3 times 5 is 15. How do I get a positive 2? Is with a positive 5 and a negative 3, right? So let's just check our work here. Does everyone agree 5 and a negative 3 is positive 2? 5 minus 3 is 2. And 5 times with negative 3 is negative 15. So we have it factored perfectly. And the thing to understand, guys, is each of these parts right here, each of these parentheses is a separate factor. So when I look over here, I'm looking for a x minus 3 and a x plus 5. So as you can see, my answer would be D. Pause the video if you need to. Let's take a look at this one. Again, they're talking about the factors of this. So what are they telling you to do? Is factor it. So I'm just going to take x times x, because that's going to give me x squared. With 24, I know 6 times 4 is 24. And the reason why I picked 6 and 4 is because a minus 2 is negative 6 plus 4. So checking our work, do you agree negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2? And negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. These parts right here, those two sets of parentheses, are my factors. And if we look to the left here, we will notice the answer is D. Also notice, guys, they put answer A here to trick us, right? See how they change the signs. So don't get tricked by things like signs changing. Okay, they're going to try to trick you. All right, pause the video if you need to. All right, this one again. The question is, what is the other factor? They're telling us one factor is that. Well, basically, they're telling us to factor. Now, this time we're going to factor with GCF. So if I take 3xy squared, and remember, ultimately, I want to come back to here. So some of you may want to think of it as dividing in. So follow the red. If I take 21 divided by 3, do you agree I get 7? If I take that x divided by x, do you agree they cancel out? And y3 divided by y2 is simply y. Notice the minus right there. And now we're going to divide this GCF. Remember, this is called our greatest common factor. We're now going to divide that into the other term. So follow the blue here. 15 divided by 3 is 5. X squared divided by x is x. Y squared divided by y squared, of course, they cancel out. So this is my factored form, as we like to call it. The beginning part here is called our greatest common factor. This is my other factor. So I'm going to look for 7y minus 5x. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, here's the last two problems we're going to do, guys. Now this goes back to graphing polys again. And the thing I want you to understand is whenever I have a factor, that's telling you where it's 0, or in case of our graph, we know if this is positive 9, we know it's going to go through 9. Okay? Notice the x plus 3 is squared. The other thing to realize is that whenever we have a square or even power, it's going to touch and bounce back up. If it's coming underneath, it's going to touch and then bounce back down again. So any square or even power, you're going to have a bounce. It's just going to touch and bend back. A cube is just going to wiggle through or cross through it just like an x cube function normally would. And this, by the way, would go for any odd function. Like if that was a 5, we know it would still cross. Okay? So putting that information together, let's do red first here. I know that this negative x3 means I have a 0 at 0, because 0 cubed is 0. And because, again, it's an odd function, I know it's going to cross at 0. Okay? The key one is the x plus 3. We know negative 3 makes x plus 3 0, right? Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. But because of the square power, we know it's either going to touch and bounce down, touch or bounce up, depending on the position of the graph. Okay? And then finally, this x minus 9 simply means 9 is another 0, another place where it crosses. So if we look at our choices here, choice A, follow the yellow now. It says it crosses at 0. That's good. It crosses at negative 9. We know it crosses at positive 9. So A is no good. Let's look at choice C. It says 0, it touches and turns around. No, that would be, by the way, if this was an x squared instead of an x cubed. Okay? Because any square or even power, that's when it bounces. So we know C is wrong. So let's look at our choice B and D here. B says it crosses at 0. Good. Check. Negative 3, it touches and turns around. I refer to that as a bounce. That's true. It crosses at positive 9. That's true. So that's why the answer is B. Again, let me erase and start over here, guys. This time I'll go with blue and see if it stands out. So what we learned right here, guys, because it's a negative x cubed, 0 makes it 0, and it crosses at 0, therefore. The x minus 9 means 9 again is where it crosses. The x plus 3 in the middle means negative 3 is where it's going to actually touch and bounce because of the square power. And that's what we got on choice B right here. All right, one more, guys, and we'll call it quits here. Notice on number 34. I'll stick with blue here. See that negative x squared, guys? We know x equals 0 is going to be one of the zeros. Because of the square, though, it's going to bounce. It's going to touch and bend back up or touch and bend back down depending on where it's coming from. The x plus 9 means negative 9 makes it 0. Let me actually go to red. It'll stand out a little bit better here. And then finally, let's not be tricked. Do you recognize that right there, guys, as a difference of two squares? Think about it with me. Do you agree x squared minus 1 is really x minus 1 times x plus 1? So what that's telling us is 1 is another 0. Negative 1 is another 0. And so let's put it all together. We know, follow the yellow, it's going to cross at negative 1, 1, and at negative 9. It's going to bounce again at x equals 0. So if we look at choice A, they say 0. It turns around or bounces. That's good. It crosses at negative 9. We agree with that. It crosses at negative 1. It crosses at positive 1. The answer is A. You can check the other choices, but none of the other ones here say exactly the same thing. So that's why the answer is A. And so, guys, I'll cut my video short here. I just want to remind you, hopefully in this video, you learned how important it is to factor. Okay? And as the last problem, you notice, it's very important to recognize what those zeros mean in a given function, how it ties to the graph. See you later.